Tony,
Everything is okay. Yes, thank you. I'm from Malawi. I still have a Malawi. My legs are still skinny. But it's no pain. Still getting it.
¿se puede mover esa mesa? She wants to
I guess I'll have to come on.
Hey,
I got you. I'm ready. I'm ready. I've never been. Wait, I know that like the friend from our road house. Not road house, oh my god. No, you lost weight. No, you lost weight. I can tell that I don't remember you down like this. I eat it. No, I you want to pass this around with your name, email, all that good stuff? Without glasses or with glasses? That's without glasses.
Good.
Okay, all right, we got to stop.
Basically, it's called
So what where we did the last My balance is not so good because my sensory my spine is getting calcium. Bone has. I was very so the whole year, 100% medication. But we all know that at some point, yeah. But for now, so yesterday, those ones, I used to get it more often. But in all the stuff,
Are you okay?
Sometimes you buy something and you don't do it. Immune system. I haven't, become on the phone. Sister left on some. Another brother.
And that's the same
11 always have to have less than. Because the point is,
Why do you like pizza?
Certainly, Michael's still there. I was in New York. Sometimes they come, but they found this is the last time because they are going to college. I don't know. It depends upon where they have been accepted.
You ready?
But no, they're going up. They're going up. Oh, yeah, that was the situation is bad. Oh, I see.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it
Yeah, they they have given I'll listen to this stuff, but I just wanted to mention that I have
You're away already? Yeah.
so they because I can do 66 in the contract yes, then it says that your social security should if you see in our sea, like these not even workers, they just
They gave us permission
$20,000 I have to give back, and it's a credit. So now, to make a long story short, I'm getting from my disability $670. For 6 weeks, I had a cover or something. Yes, but you know, they can fight the lawyers and all that. So I just get it from my face.
Well, I didn't know how it worked. Like, it's like one subject where they had.
So I did contact.
I went so I started posting on my page. Yeah.
You know, in the end, I might just tell the president, he owes me an account. Yeah, but it is a shame.
I already know. I'm sorry, what you got?
I mean, how come this is wrong? How come just because and this was the I don't know long what to live. I've lost
Now that I know both sides, I'm like, yo, this is how they could have done it. And near my house, I love being on part time. You know,
it's not a right that I still have one thing that they want to evaluate. 66. They gave me permission to live so everything is still
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It's beautiful to see all your faces in the crowd. Such an amazing day. Happy 91st birthday to Malcolm X. We're commemorating his life, his achievements, his practices, and how they're still affecting us, and how guiding us to this day. So I'm going to open up with Professor Vandermeer, who's going to come up and give libations before our speakers have a chance to briefly introduce themselves.
So, good evening. So, Vanessa asked me to open up with libations, and I think it's very appropriate, considering that the program is in celebration of Malcolm X's birthday, who is one of our great ancestors. And so, generally in the African tradition, this is what we do, is we open up with libations. So, but I want you to help me with this libation. We're going to do it real quick, and I'm sure you'll get it, how you can get it. So I want you to say, let's try one more time. So I'm going to chant, and then I'm going to cue you in, and you're going to say that, right? Okay, let's try one more time to make sure it's right. Ready? Translation. Far away to a distant place. May never be war in this land again. Far away to a distant place. Far away to a distant place. May never be evil in this land again. Far away to a distant place. We gotta open up like that because we know what happens to our connections, people. We know what's happening with war. Taking money to stop putting money in housing and education and healthcare, and so forth, and better wages. So, war only hurts us, right? So we wanted to go where? Far away. Thank you, that's it.
I will now ask the speakers to briefly introduce themselves. And again, thank you all for being in the space and sharing. And we would like to remind everyone to remember to first think, talk, and also listen to one another, and to respect one another. And hopefully you can all join in leading with love today. Also, we're live streaming the event. Yes, tonight. This is the URL, so please send it off to your friends who may have not been able to join us here tonight, and may be able to join us online. So we'll still be hopefully in this space and sending their energy. and their good vibrations. So we'll now begin with the panelists, and how about we have Mr. Zia Torres.
Good evening, sisters, ladies and gentlemen, youth, children. My name is Dr. Stokely Carmichael, and I'm a veteran Black liberation movement activist, one of the founders of Black Arts Cultural Revolution, and also I was honored to be on the battlefield with Rand, Smith, and all the freedom fighting organizations that our people created in the time that we surged forward in the freedom movement, the liberation movement of 1967. So it's an honor to still be here, standing before you as witness and testimony of our people's historic and ongoing freedom struggle, and also solidarity with all allies and people of consciousness and decent human beings who stand with us on behalf of freedom and true liberation and a democratic life for humanity. Shake.
Peace, everyone. My name is Lenise. I am an organizer with Black Lives Matter Boston. I do a lot of other things. I'm a youth educator, a youth organizer, but my work is centered around Black lives.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Muhammad Ahmad, a veteran, who worked with Malcom, Robert F. Williams, Queen Mother of the Abner Berry, Bob Seafood, Grace and James Boggs, you know, and a few others. Co-founder of Graham, African People's Party, ex-member of SNCC. Just old man.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kalina, and I'm the district coordinator for SEIU 32BJ, District 615. Can you guys hear me? So I do community strategic partnership work for labor union. SEIU is the Service Employees International Union. Worldwide, we represent about 2.2 million people. The arm of the local that I work for represents security officers and janitors, so folks who do cleaning, mostly in commercial office buildings. We're also doing organizing of workers at Logan Airport. We're actually organizing workers at 7 different airports across the country. My work is focused around Logan Airport and the 1,500 passenger service workers that are there, who right now make minimum wage with no benefits. I'm also the vice president of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, the Greater Boston chapter of the A. Philip Randolph Institute. APRI, or A. Philip Randolph, is a national Black worker labor organization affiliated with the AFL-CIO.
My name is Saladin Muhammad. I was born in Philadelphia, but I've been living in North Carolina for the last 35 years. I come out of the infrastructure that was built by the Revolutionary Action Movement and became a leader in the African People's Party during the 1970s. I've been active in the trade union movement for the last 35 years, trying to organize workers based on the centrality of the black working class. And also dealing with the South as a very, very strategic region of U.S. and global capital and an important region in the struggle for black liberation. And I'm very glad to be here.
My name is Michelle Santana, and I'm the newest member of We Are the Ones. We're a coalition that's composed of young women, predominantly from Boston, Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester, and we strive to promote economic change, social change, and specifically in the 3 areas of community restoration, youth empowerment, and economics. And in light of this special day, a quote that we actually live by is, "We cannot wait on our Martin, we cannot wait on our Malcolm, we are the ones." So the purpose of today is that we want to carry on that legacy, and we also have a lot of work to do because we do understand there's still a genocide occurring outside. So although I don't have a long list, like a resume, like some of the brothers and sisters up here have, I do have heart, and I've done things on the side, for example, putting together a cleanup with Jazz in the back, and also, I did go to St. Louis, specifically to Ferguson, and I met with some brothers who are on the front line. I did a book drive, so I've been starting to just get the ball rolling, and just being invited to become a member with We Are the One just catapulted that. So you'll be seeing a lot more of me. So thank you.
Peace, how y'all doing? My name is Nino Brown. I'm a founder and organizing member of Mass Action Against Police Brutality, and we are fighting to jail killer cops. The cops are not held above the law. We are calling to open all the past cases of police brutality, open all of them, to have them independently investigated, in addition to reparations to all victims of police brutality, and calling for the end to intimidation to all witnesses of police brutality. In addition, I'm a member of the anti-coalition with Act Now, Stop War and Racism, and we fight against primarily racism and imperialism, understanding that imperialism is the primary system that we live in, and that the major problem today is, oppressor nations like the one we're in today, oppressing nations like Venezuela, Syria, what have you, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And we fight to put the working class in power, so that we can put an end to capitalism and imperialism, the root cause of our social ills and problems.
Thank you all for introducing yourself. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your dedication, your discipline. It's felt and appreciated. I'm going to begin, I guess the first question that I have for each of our panelists here is how Malcolm X relates to the practice that you engage in your work, the work that you do in your community, the work that you do in your organization, the work that you do with the masses. And we can start with Dr. Thomas on the comment.
Nobody even start with me.
Can I make a suggestion? Can the speakers, when you speak, if you could sort of stand up to project your voice a little bit more, because I'm sorry we don't have a mic, but it would just be helpful. All right?
Well, one, Malcolm was a revolutionary and a nationalist, and he had moved to the position of true Islam and true revolution, where in the Holy Quran it states that if there is oppression and evil, a Muslim must fight against that oppression or forfeits their right to be called a Muslim. Go to the mighty day, including Juma, make your five, and all the rest. So if you ain't fighting against oppression, oppression exists. Not following in the way of Prophet Muhammad. This oppression is or the true essence of Islam. Islam is grown. Right. And as any true internationalist revolutionary, you carry this day by day, you know, to wherever you see oppression, and you in America, there's oppression all over on their lips. So you fight against it whatever way you can. And if you can't go into the physical aspect without being transgender, you know, or the grave, then you have to fight, otherwise politically. And so in that sense, you know, 24/7, your thought process is, how do I contribute to overthrowing this satanic, demonic, capitalist, imperialist empire? You know, and so that becomes your mode of resistance. And one of my mentors, Rachel Biles, who's a dialectical humanist, and who was, you know, helped Malcom develop, I asked her, I said, well, why don't you, you know, talk about capitalism as much as you did before? And she came with an answer that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had raised many years ago. And my grandmother said, we always called it the devil. You know, so we're in a society that's based on oppression in every form that you can think of. And you're getting it 24/7 from electronically, right? Even while you sleep, when you turn off your TV, it's looking at you, right? Computer is looking at you, right? You carrying it, it's, you know, taping you, right? You know, satellite, right? So this is Shaitan globally, or oppression.
Peace again, my name is Nino. So, you know, when I think of Malcolm X was an internationalist. He was an anti-capitalist and an anti-racist, right? So Malcolm X was a good internationalist because he was a good black nationalist. He was a good revolutionary nationalist, because you can't be a good internationalist without taking care of your own first. And Malcolm X said, you know, before there can be any worker solidarity, before there can be any black and white unity and solidarity, there needs to be black solidarity and unity first. That black people need to take the call of self-determination, organize themselves as a black people, as an oppressed diasporic African people, into a political force. You know, so the conception that we are minorities is completely false, because it's Europeans and the rich, the capitalists, the imperialists that are the tiny minutia of society, right? So India, brown. China, yellow. Africa, the black man. Latin America, the red man, the indigenous, Latinos. Malcolm X was an internationalist in saying that we needed to unite as people of color, you know, against imperialism, against the empire that we live in, the belly of the beast. So as far as our work that we do in mass action against police brutality, a man by the name of Osama Rahim, he was murdered by the Boston Police Department and the FBI through the JTT, the Joint Terrorism Force, Terrorist Task Force, June 2nd, 2015, for a thought crime, pretty much. They had no accusation, they had no real reason to kill this man other than they thought that they thought they knew what he was thinking. As my good brother here spoke about the surveillance state. You know, so understanding that we are living in a surveillance state unlike no other, understanding that we're living in a police state unlike no other, understanding that fascism is here, right? Donald Trump is on the rise, that, you know, these political forces against black people, they are armed. When we look at Dylan Roof, when we look at these white supremacists, they don't play games, you know? So that's the Malcolm X spoke about extremism and the cause of true liberty. And he said that it was no vice, you know. So I think black people need to take up that call that we have been the most oppressed people of the last 500 years. In every single nation that they've enslaved us, to the east, to the west, Arabs did enslave Africans. We have to look at all that history. We have to understand that in every single society, black folks have been building other people's societies. So at that same point, we have the power to deconstruct and build societies because we have built the world for the past 500 years. But I digress. So back to Osama Rahim, this young man was killed 2015 by the state, ultimately, you know, the state, racist, imperialist, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, you want some Lucifers, two sides of the same coin. We're organizing a walk for peace. I mean, not walk for peace, a walk for justice, because we can't have justice without peace and peace without justice. But we need some justice first. To commemorate this young man's life and call that, you know, that the targeting of blacks and Muslims, that the tapes of the killing of Osama Rahim are released, that his cousin David Wright be released. He was picked up by the FBI for no other reason. They thought that he was trying to give material aid to Daesh, the Islamic State, which is a funny thing because the United States actively funds rebels in, you know, or the past 5 years. Actually, no, the past 15 years in the war on terror, all we've seen is the more proliferation of these ISIS types wherever the U.S. goes, you know, so I think the U.S. should be investigating themselves. But Osama Rahim, June 2nd, on this year, June 2nd, we're doing a walk for justice to remember this man, and also called for unity and united front against not only just police brutality, but, you know, a myriad of issues that poor, working class, oppressed people face. And I think that's the best way to, that Malcolm plays a significant role in, you know, the work that I do in all of my organizations and just in life in general.
Next we'll have Winnie.
So I had cough yesterday, so I'm a little sore.
Girl.
You know, I was struggling. You did a little better than me. Can I like crunch like this? Okay, crunching like this. So I'm half standing. Okay, where should I start? Nino touched on some like key points of what I would want to highlight in the work that I do. I think it's something that we all know that Malcolm's economic, social, and political philosophy was based on Black nationalism. I think that's something we all can nod our heads and agree on, right? But a big thing that he explored and spoke about was how, as Black people, we suffer from political oppression, economic exploitation, and social degradation. sure. Did everybody hear what I said? Yeah. Okay, word. And so for me, I think exploring that and understanding that we have suffered from all those factors, that we need to gain control of our community, right? That's a big thing that he was very big on saying. We need to gain community control, economically, politically, and socially, because we are suffering violence, and we need to take that by force, right? Not trying to quote Christian scripture, but you get what I'm saying. But you know, in the work that I do, I think it's important that we explore the importance of our lives. Black Lives Matter was founded as a grassroots organization for Black people to unite and declare that our lives matter, because the government has failed us, right? That's something that Brother Malcom always said, that the government has failed us. So what do? We take it by force, by any means. So Black Lives Matter is a very unapologetic and radical movement by Black people, all Black people. Different movements have centered different Black lives, and this movement is to center all Black lives that have been oppressed. And so even in my work now, I have the privilege of doing a Know Thyself seminar with young people. And for me, I think the key to breaking those chains is we have to explore how we have been decolonized for centuries, and how we have been suffering on a very high scale, to the point where it's hard to have real genuine conversation, because our pain and oppression has been normalized. We've repressed a lot of the pain and suffering we have faced, right? So it's just led to the victim syndrome, right? We feel like we can't claim peace and we can't claim justice. So a lot of the work that I do is saying that that's us, right? We can claim what we desire, we can claim what's ours. I like to, do work with young people, because I believe that they are the future, right? They're what's going to save us from a lot of this craziness. No swearing, right? So I'm African TV. So I didn't know. Just checking in. I'm just checking in. I know. I was checking in. But that's my big push. I do healing justice work and decolonizing work with young people and with other Black people. I'm also part of this group called BCPA, the Boston Coalition for Police Accountability. And we're putting together a survey to understand what are the forces that our community are facing when it comes to law enforcement. So what is the emotional, physical, and mental damage that we face here in Boston? So, yeah.
Well, a lot of people touched upon the points of here, so great job. Wayo does a lot of work with everything. So one of the areas, even in community restoration, right now we're working on the Ella Little Collins house and restoring that property. And Jasmine, actually one of the members from our group, she's working with the nephew. So that touches along what Malcolm X does, because her focus throughout her life was education and self-empowerment. And that touches upon what Malcolm X stood for, which was having knowledge of self. Before you can do anything and trying to empower anyone else, you must have knowledge of self. And I actually was viewing a clip about him, and there was an interviewer that said, how do you feel about Black students going to predominantly white schools? And he said, they should first of all start off in Black schools and first have knowledge of self, have racial dignity, have racial pride, and then we can move forward with competing with other parties. So like folks up here mentioned, it's about empowering your people first, because we all know that white folks empower their own when it comes to businesses and everything. So why are we not practicing the same from our end? So that on that note, it's just making sure that you actually practice what you preach and you do what he would want us to do. And another component of Malcolm X was just uniting all African fronts. So from the diaspora, not just from the Americas, from Central America, South America, the Caribbean, because too many times myself as an Afro-Latina, I do see a disconnect. And there's colorism within that and everything. So what I appreciate about him, and with other leaders like Kwame Ture as well, they spoke on that point in bringing us together, because there are strength in numbers. And as folks mentioned up here, the more we come together, the more we can crush imperialism, capitalism, racism, things of that nature. And one more thing about Malcolm X, he was a fearless leader, and I am surrounded by fearless women in this group. Like, these women are no joke. So I think that is something that is hard because we are unlearning what has been done in our minds, being subservient and in this inferiority complex that we are less than, especially when we're in predominantly white spaces. I live it every day where I work. So it's a matter of unlearning and surrounding yourself with people like Malcolm X to just really unlearn it and get to that point of being fearless. And, you know, when you hear the ignorance, you call it out in the street. Doesn't matter who's there, because at the end of the day, we're going to get taken out some way, unfortunately. Either execute or we're going to pass. So we might as well, when we're here in the physical realm, just keep it moving forward. And to end off with that, one of the sisters in my group, Ade, she mentioned, we're not here for the moment, we're here for the movement. So we're not here just for recognition, we're here to get things done. So one of the biggest things is being unapologetic, but making sure you're not here for the medals and the rewards, because Malcolm X wouldn't do that, Kwame Ture wouldn't do that. So just keep that in mind when you're moving forward, because it's sometimes when you get to that point that you're involved in so many things, like you get attention hungry, but it's like, no, think back to what, like, you know how they say, what would Malcolm X, he would not. That's just a big component, being a fearless leader, and I'm still doing that till now, so, yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. You are fearless. You fear, and we feel it. Thank you. Next, we'll have Kalita.
So the first thought I had with the question you posed, and I agree a lot with what everyone else has said, is actually about how much it struck me, even as a young person, the level of passion, pure love that Malcolm held for people. And he spoke to that, and he did it constantly and unapologetically. He was unapologetically Black and proud, and he put it out there. And so I feel like there's an aspect of that openness, of that boldness, in claiming all of who we are and demanding not just economic stability or social stability, but all of it, because we are a whole people. We have the right to be held as whole people, as human rights, right? As Black people, to be recognized on this planet. That's what moved me when I first learned about him, and what keeps me, I think, connected to so much of the words that he shared with us. Today, I think we need to be bold. We need to be open. We need to be unapologetically Black and proud. And we need to bring that in to everything that we do. Then people feel like, well, this isn't the space for that, but that issue is over there, or that's the race down, acknowledging that we as a people are oppressed, and we're done with that. And addressing that oppression is not singular. It's very deep. It's rooted in every other thing that we do. And so much of the work that I've been in has been very siloed, right? We're fighting for housing justice over here. We're fighting for jobs over here. We're fighting for this over here. And so I think it's just really important that as a people, we remember that this broader, bigger analysis around race and racism in this country being a part of it needs to be analysis that we all hold, that we all process and share with each other, and that we bring in to everything that we do. Because people are too afraid, too iffy about putting that out there, because they don't want to acknowledge it, because maybe their fear of repercussions. I don't know. There are a lot of things wrapped up in that. But that is incredibly important in this moment in time that we're in, particularly with labor. So I work for a labor union. I'm not an organizer, but I do strategic partnership work to connect my local to everything else around us, to the community around us, to recognize that our workers, our members, are not just workers. They're somebody's mom. Their kids go to a school. They live in our communities. They shop in our stores. Like, they're whole people, right? And so while we fight for them on the work front, it is also our responsibility to make sure that all the other issues in their existence that impact their quality of life is also something that we as a union fight for and recognize and connect to the other work that we're doing. So as long as we are siloed and thinking, as long as you got a decent wage and some healthcare benefits, you're good, we failed ourselves. So labor needs to embrace a real race analysis and hold it boldly and unapologetically in order for us to make that transition.
Wonderful to see so many sisters, brothers, comrades here. Understand, be very clear that we're in a period, very dangerous period of rise of fascism among us. Fascism is like Hitler and Mussolini and so forth, where they tried to destroy minority people, people of color, or put them in concentration camps. You know that clown that they got, you know what the statement was. So be very clear about that. But we also need to continue building, and I'm in solidarity with people, with everyone, but particularly with the people that talk about building structures for our people. One of the things, building structures for our people again. And so many people get up and say, oh, we need to do this. Study your history. Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We built whole cities and structures, and then the right-wing demons came and started burning them down and bombing them with airplanes. So we have to rebuild structures. If you're going to speak of liberation, then you have to build structures which will enable the working people and the oppressed people to carry these structures out as instruments of liberation. And you have to have forces to protect your liberation process. I'm not going to say so much.
Next we'll have Solomon.
Well, for me, Malcolm represented a few things. He showed that when this system drives you down to your lowest point, that you can rise up and transform yourself. Malcolm did that. You know, Malcolm was at his lowest point. A drug addict, you know, a pimp, you know, people wanted to kill him, you know, but he transformed himself. And he showed that if we apply ourselves and if we study our history, because see, Malcolm couldn't develop by himself without beginning to have some sense of his history, of lessons that came from his history, of what to do and what not to do. This was very, very important. Malcolm also distinguished national sentiment from national consciousness. You know, we have a spontaneous movements. Malcolm would say this represents a phase of development of the revolutionary struggle. But it's only a phase. It's not at a point where it can take the struggle forward and seize power. So sentiment deals with emotion and passion, which is necessary, but consciousness deals, you understand, with understanding your enemy, having a strategy, deploying your forces in ways, you know, that recognizes the weaknesses at a given historical period of the oppressor, so that you can weaken the oppressor, so you can alter the balance of power in the course of the ongoing revolutionary struggle. And this is very, very, very important, brothers and sisters. The enemy will want the spontaneous movement, the spontaneous phase, because our people are going to resist. They're going to fight You understand? You know, even if they only can spit at you, they're gonna fight. It's not gonna tolerate oppression. But spitting ain't gonna overthrow this system. You know, it may embarrass them, you know, but it's not gonna overthrow them. It really requires, one, understanding the system, where the power is at, where the weakness is at. Because when we apply pressure, we want the pressure to at least knock it to its knees. You understand? So that the next generation or the generation of that can take it out. And this is what Malcolm taught. Malcolm taught that while we were in a black liberation struggle, a national liberation struggle, that we had to recognize that this system that we live under oppresses other nations and other peoples all around the world. And so while our strategy cannot just be limited to what we can do ourselves, because we don't have the power by ourselves to change this thing. The power that we have is that we've been a catalyst. Our movement has been a catalyst. It has drawn other movements into motion. But our movement must have a vision and a program, because you can draw other movements into motion and still have no direction for those other movements. And so we really have to look at Malcolm and understand that he's changed. Malcolm said, and he was a Muslim, he was a dedicated Muslim, but he said, keep your religion between you and your God. And it's very important to recognize that. There's going to be contradictions among the people. But these contradictions are secondary to the contradictions between all of us, and particularly the majority of us, the working class, the black, brown, and people of color working class, and the system that oppresses us. That's the primary contradiction. And so we have to recognize that when we talk about a united front. We got battlefronts, we got people fighting against environmental racism, housing, workers fighting challenging capital, whether they understand it or not more directly. But these battlefronts don't have a sense of how their immediate struggles or their struggles for reform, how they impact the system, and whether these reform struggles are raising demands that challenge capital, recognizing its global crisis. You know, they want us to say hallelujah about Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. You know, but that ain't going to challenge capital at all. And so there's going to be all kinds of symbolic reforms that we may feel that we should fight for because we've been deprived of certain kinds of things. My last point is that we must not only react to the strategy of the enemy, we must have our own strategy. Our enemy will put forward issues and frame issues in certain kind of ways and have our movement, you understand, just to respond to their framing. We have to have a frame. And our frame must recognize the domestic and the global contradictions and who the allies are in a given period and who the enemy is in a given period. We must really have an analysis there. Because if not, we're not going to win this damn thing. We're not going to win it. We done lost so many people. We've had Katrina, and the Black Liberation Movement says, we're going to support the people in Palestine. We're going to support, you know, South Africa. We're going to support, you know, Libya. And they saying, well, damn, what did y'all do about Katrina? You know, we're talking about our power to be internationalists, but when we're attacked here, when they drown our people and wait 4 to 5 days to go in to New Orleans, you know, to so-called rescue people, and then they have ethnic cleansing and then throw us all over the doggone country, and we can't unite to fight against this, but yet we declare ourselves so powerful, so great, you know, to be able to support the struggles internationally. We got to build a united front, brothers and sisters. We got to develop a manifesto for Black liberation. But that manifesto must also be international as well. You know, must be international. But it is a struggle that begins to define how we see our role in the struggle to radically change this society, a revolutionary struggle. And that's very, very important. And so Malcolm had that kind of impression on me and my experience. We got to study him. He talked about the importance of Black workers. He talked about internationalism. He understood race, you know, and I don't use that term race that much. I talk about national oppression because it's more than just our race. It's where we live at. It's our culture. You know, it's the super exploitation of our labor. And so we have to deal with that because race got something to do with social relationships in the main. We have to deal with the structural role of race and how it oppresses us, keeps us down, and also divides us. Because, you know, race has also divided us among ourselves. You know, early on, the lighter of brother and sister was the one that was encouraged to go to school, to go to college. So this contradiction, you know, also impacted our own selves. So Malcolm, I think he was very, very important. The first time I heard the term ideology was from Malcolm. What was ideology? You know, what does these things mean? So he brought an end to the understanding of Black people's resistance, some questions that revolutionaries have been dealing with for years and years before Malcolm.
We'll now move to the second round of questions, which is the final round, before we open it up to the audience, have some discussion and dialogue. Because I'm sure there's so many here that are burning with questions, that do their own work in the community, building unity, and against this vast power structure. And so for the next question, we have so what were struggles that Malcolm had, and how do these struggles relate to those that we have today? Either have they made us look at our own movement and how we move ahead into the future and how we correct them? What are our new mistakes that we're making? So basically, what are the mistakes of Brother Malcolm and how we move forward to understand these mistakes, and how we've gone to try to change them in the way that we do the work today. We'll start with Nina.
Peace, how we doing again? So with Malcolm X, he was a human being, and human beings make mistakes. Despite, you know, the fact that Malcolm X has been deified, he feels like they can even be like Malcolm. No one feels like they can be like any revolutionary, because revolutionaries are up here and the people are everywhere else. Malcolm X understood that the masses, the people, in our numbers make everything. So some of the mistakes that I think that Malcolm X made, as every revolutionary has made mistakes, was in his we spoke about his analysis of Black nationalism. I think Malcolm's mistakes, not necessarily his mistakes, but he learned from his mistakes. You know, I think Malcolm X's success was his brutal honesty with his mistakes, to break with the Nation of Islam, for to take on political struggles. I think Malcolm X realized some of his mistakes in terms of belief and ideology. And I think developing his ideology as it related to his concrete practice and what was his environment, I think he was a little too when we talk about contradictions among the people and who are our friends, who are our enemies, I think Malcolm X was a little too acerbic to Black folks who, or parts of the Black liberation movement that could have played a more progressive and allying role at different periods of the struggle. I think that the counterposing of Malcolm X and Dr. King, as if they were two even poles, because at the end of their lives, they were really closer towards what the majority of my comrades have spoken about, of internationalism, talking about capitalism, talking about colonialism, things beyond just civil rights. So I think alienating some allies was kind of a mistake. But in addition, when we talk about the state and how Malcolm was killed, I think we can't. Malcolm was not naive about the state, but I think a mistake that we potentially make, or I think we do make in this period, is that we don't have an understanding of like what the state is in its formation. It's not some neutral, orbiting ground where you try to hash out contradictions with your oppressor. The state is a tool. It's the club that beats us, right? So understanding that in mass action against police brutality, we have principles. Our fifth principle is that we don't work with any informants, past informants, police officers, wannabe cops, prosecutors, what have you. And we've had to kick out undercover police officers, undercover agents from several of our meetings. So that this is the state. It's gonna seek to infiltrate and muddle and stymie all of revolutionary movement. And I wouldn't say that mass action is a revolutionary group, or even that we're in a revolutionary period, and the state is already quick to hop on and infiltrate. So if there are any police in here, I think we should have kicked them out in the beginning. Maybe you're here, maybe you could learn something. I don't know. Maybe not. Again, we don't need to be naive about the state. It's what's your job. Understanding that this is life or death. Last, I want to end on the point that typically, I think the mistake that we make is our projection of who he was. Malcolm X, towards the end of his life, changed his views on women, changed his views on Black nationalism, changed his views on race, changed his views on quote unquote the system. He said, "Capitalist. You show me a capitalist, I'll show you a bloodsucker." You can't have racism without capitalism, capitalism without racism. So Malcolm X began to call out the enemy, began to unite with those, even though we have contradictions among ourselves, like Arabs and Africans, and within other people of color. I myself am Jamaican, and there are Chinese people on my island, mixed people on my island, and I think Malcolm X would believe in the fact that white supremacy is not it's not only structural, it is metaphysical, it is existential. That from ourselves, because every single white person on the face of this earth could get on a ship and go to Mars, and we would still have white supremacy just continue to function, because understanding that it lives within us. I really believe that the key point with Malcolm is learning from your mistakes and being honest to change your ideology. A lot of folks don't think they have an ideology. They say, "I have no ideology." Well, that's an ideology because you're following someone else's ideology. Just growing up as a fish in water, you see TV, go to school, you go to institutions that indoctrinate you with ideology. So we need to come up with our own revolutionary, internationalist Black ideology. And I just want to end on a practical point. Usama Rahim. Malcolm X was a practical man. I think that it would benefit any movement that wants to honor his spirit, that we stand for Usama Rahim's life. He was a Black Muslim man. He was killed in Boston. They say Ferguson is everywhere. Ferguson is here. We had the same contradictions here. Police in the state exist here. So Usama Rahim, June 2nd, 2016, join us as we build to confront the state and end police brutality.
Just what lesson you may have learned from Malcolm, how they relate to the struggle today?
Wow. Well, I agree so much with what Nino said, and it was said beautifully. So the thing that came up for me when you asked that a second time was there's a need for us to be very humble, just as a people, as individuals. We can sometimes, I don't know, just get it stuck in our brains that we know, right? Like, oh, this way is the way, and we stick that stick in the ground. I think it's incredibly important for us to remember that as human beings, as people, if you leave school, that doesn't mean that you aren't still learning, right? Life is a school, and it will guide you if you pay attention to it. And if you actually reflect and think about the experiences that you've had and the information you have, and we can start off in one place and end up in a very different one. And so I think it's very important just to be humble as a people and never forget that we need to always be learning, always be processing, and always be open to recognizing who a potential ally is so that we can strengthen our movement. Someone else said it, I don't know who, but we cannot do this alone. We can't. We're not the only ones on the planet, right? Like we cannot do this alone. In order for us to be successful, I think we need to constantly be processing and growing and doing that with each other and be reflecting on where we were and where we need to go. I think Malcom was an incredible sort of example of someone who was humble enough to be honest and to continue to reflect so that he was growing as a person. And then he shared that with his people. We have to do the same.
Michelle, again, the lessons of Malcom and how they relate to the struggles.
So Nino and everyone else touched upon many of the points I was going to state. But one thing that is clear is that Malcolm X's daughter, okay, he focused a lot on like the current times, and we all know now that conditions have worsened. And I think it's because we are seeing what's happening on video cameras, and now it's becoming so normalized. So I think one of the things or one of the lessons I would learn from that is moving smart, because a lot of the times we're too loud with what we do, and that's how they come in, infiltrate, and do what they do. So I think it's about moving smart, going back to the basics, like one of the elders said up here, you know, stepping back from technology, like learning your history, learning how to garden, learning how to do your own thing, self-determination, because at the end of the day, if we continue depending on shopping here, going there, we're not ever going to build our own structures. We're never going to build our own nation. So definitely moving smart. Like I said, everyone else said everything I was going to say, but we just have to live with the mindset that this is not a joke, that we're living in a state of genocide. People are getting killed every day. Just May 17th in Houston, a sister of 22 years old, she got in a car accident, and instead of being sent to the hospital, she was sent to jail, and she had headaches and she died there. There's too many things happening for us to just sit here and stay back and be caught up in technology. Even Facebook and all that stuff, that is brainwashing. That's stopping us from moving forward. So it's a matter of being smart, but also with our current times, because technology wasn't such an issue back then as it is now, we have to play in that, you know, that component and be a little bit smarter in how we move and what we put out there on social media. So that's pretty much it.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting steered in direction. This is such a real question. I think for me, I think the biggest thing that I learned was being with the people from Malcom. I think in the beginning we saw him, you know, as an activist going out to speaking to people, but in his closing years, he was very grassroots. He was an organizer. He was with the people, trying to permeate change in our communities. I see him as a father of grassroots organizing in my head. So I think for me, when I reflect on what does it mean to be an organizer, what does it mean to get down on the ground with the people table and really understand like what is our struggles, what are we facing. And I think I already said it before, but in developing his philosophies, it was understanding that we suffer political oppression, economic exploitation, and social degradation, right? And so in establishing those things and understanding that we suffer from those things, what are the things that we're gonna do to permeate change, to change our current situation? Like Nino said, like, if white folks leave, like, we still gotta work on decolonizing our mind, our spirit, our body, our soul. And I think just understanding from Malcolm that we got us, right? We got us. We don't have to look out to other resources, but we need to come together and join in a united front and really, but really come together and be with each other and really understand like how can we unite together and permeate the change and create the future that we want to see, not only for ourselves, but also generations to come.
Yeah, I just want to focus on building structures, united fronts, and other structures. And keep in mind, as I said before, this is not the first time that we built structures. We built cities and so forth. But anything that you build, you have to have the ability to defend common sense. And so we are moving forward to liberate in the spirit of Brother Malcolm and all of our great freedom fighters. We are moving forward to liberate ourselves again. Because some folks think this is the first time this is happening. Study, that's why it's so important that we try to develop, and we did develop freedom schools or liberation schools. You have to take the responsibility to educate our young people, the children and our young people and so forth. Otherwise, where you gonna get the future Malcolms and so forth? So that's where, and Angela Davis and all the other freedom fighters. So we have to take complete, collectively, responsibility for our lives as a people and do the necessary thing that any people does. It builds institutions and so forth. It develops strategy and tactics for the future. And it also develops methodologies to defend the institutions. And that's common sense. I'm not telling you, that's what people do all over the planet Earth. You know, you think you bad, you go try to take out China. Okay.
Maxology will share.
Well, first, I think, most of us, we know about Malcolm based on what the media and some authors, have said. But there was a lot of work that was done. Malcolm was not a singular person. He was not a singular person. He understood that he was fighting a system that everybody who was involved in the strategy and the organizing could not surface and be above. But there was an infrastructure that was built. The Republic of New Africa emerged after Malcolm died. The Black Economic Development Conference that called for reparations in 1969 emerged after Malcolm died, was assassinated. The Black Panther Party emerged after Malcolm was assassinated. So what gave material form to these organizations and these politics that Malcolm represented? Was it Malcolm by itself? There was a movement of forces, conscious forces, that were working to organize. So it's very, very important. Everything that Malcolm wanted to do, he was not able to do because the decision was not just his alone. was not just his alone. And sometimes, the collective would say, no, we can't do it this way. We got to do it another way. And it's very important, because if we think that we can grow by ourselves as individuals because we can quote everything or we know everything, then we don't understand Malcolm. We really don't understand Malcolm. Malcolm listened to the people. Malcolm's language was the language of the people. Malcolm talked about imperialism and internationalism, sometimes without even using the terms. And people understood it, and people appreciated Malcolm and loved Malcolm. Malcolm was approachable. He wasn't some of these arrogant elements, you understand, who feel like only some people can approach him. You understand, worthy people or people who got titles or people who got degrees. He was approachable. And so these are some qualities we don't talk about when we talk about Malcolm. We talk about these other things. Malcolm understood the period. We have to ask ourselves, what's our assessment of the period that we're fighting in? What's our assessment of it? We're going to protest because, we're treated, unjustly. But protest is to expose the system. It don't necessarily deal with taking power. When we talk about building structures and power, we got to deal with structures that deal with contending power and transformative power. Contending power and transformative power. A revolutionary struggle is not always on the offensive. Sometimes it's on the defensive. Sometimes it has to retreat. When we talk about China, China had to retreat. They had to regroup. Cuba, the same thing. So when we think about a revolutionary struggle, we have to analyze power relationships, what's happening in the world, what is the mood and the sentiment of the people, and what is the vulnerability of the system? What is the vulnerability? Because sometimes that don't make a difference to any of us. We just want to go out there and say, you oppressed us, and we want this, and the enemy say, well, we ain't gonna give it to you. What you gonna do about that? And then we have another protest. They wouldn't give it to us. And those kinds of things. Are we organizing any deeper? Let me say this point here. Black Lives Matter has been extremely important in developing the national sentiment. But we got to go deeper to bring the Black working class forward. We got to go deeper. We got to go deeper. We haven't seen any strikes around this question. We haven't even seen any mass boycotts around this question. So we have to go deeper. Sometimes in a movement and in a spontaneous movement, the conference that we go to and what we consider as the movement, we see the same people at every damn conference we go to. The same people. We say, that was a hell of a conference. Then we go to another, was the same people. A hell of a conference. You understand? Numbers. What the terms of who's there, where they come from, what sector of society do they come from? These things, we don't even look at these questions when we think about conferences and organizing and these things. We got to pay more attention to these questions, comrade. That's where the heavy lifting is at. It's the hard work that requires patience and these kind of things. Because you ain't going to win nobody over, you understand, by going in and beating your chest and saying, I'm the revolutionary. You have to win people over. People got to understand. I told this story about organizing as a trade unionist in Alabama. As long as I stayed in a hotel, people felt, you understand, that I was outside, I was temporary. As soon as I found a place to live, I could invite somebody over. People said, well, baby, maybe this guy is going to be here for a while. And see, we have to, recognize, that we have to have relationships with people that don't appear to be temporary, that don't appear to be based on careerism, that I'm getting paid to do this, and if I don't have it, bye, you ain't gonna see me no more. But those kind of things, people can pick those kinds of things up, brothers and sisters. So again, I think Malcolm wasn't being paid by all these foundations and these things. And the element that moved to give material form was speaking on, they wasn't paid. They wasn't paid. We slept in each other's houses, and a lot of things were done, without selling dope, you understand, to try, to sustain this movement. A lot of things were done. And so, and I'm not saying that you got to make the same decision, but we found a way, and it built a level of closeness that made us dependent on each other. Today, you understand, we ain't dependent on each other. We dependent on the foundations. I get my bread, I get this. We're not forged together to deal with these kinds of things. And so Malcolm didn't do it by himself. He didn't do it by himself. Malcolm didn't travel to all of the cities where organizations formed to support Malcolm. And I think it's very important when we think about Malcolm, we're also thinking about organization, strategy, and multi-level organizations as well. Because, one level of organization ain't gonna deal with this thing all by itself.
Well, I don't know what to say after this whole thing. But as Saladin said, Malcolm was operating on more than one level. He had students at universities doing research on what you call blackface, on issues related to practical problems. This is how he began to put the program of the Organization of Afro-American Unity together. He had a think tank, John Henry Clark, Ruby and Ossie Davis, Grayson James Bowles, and Richard B. Moore, Queen Mother Audley Moore, and others. He was in a study group. They used to meet in the back of Louis Michaud's bookstore. So when we look at Malcolm, most of us have sound bites. All right. So now, when you see Malcolm from 1963 to 1965, that's the apex of Malcolm. Because you have to look at Malcolm from 1952, or when he begins to get on TV from 1953 or 4, all the way up. And my cousin was in the Nation of Islam in the 50s. He was about 4 or 5 years older than Malcolm X. About 9, I was about 15, 14, about 56. So on TV, they have these magazines, and so it's the Nation of Islam. Now Malcolm X is not on these panels by himself. It used to be Minister James Shabazz from North. right? And so, you know, they was training him. Right? And so if he got stuck on a question, you know, I mean, I'm being honest, you know, I mean, he would, you know, look to Minister James Tobias, and Minister James Tobias would whisper something in his ear, and then he'd come out with the answer. So it was collective development. All right. So they was training him. So you know, so you can't see Malcolm as an individual, just as an individual. He was part of an organization and a movement. It goes back to the 1930s, if not before. All right. So he grows because there are people constantly mentoring him, because he could appeal, he could learn, he could pick up, he could feel his audience and articulate it, you know, aspirations or answers back. You know, so it was call and response. All right. You should know this. I mean, brothers, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, man. The brothers used to go to the best ministers in the Christian church and say, "Can I take your sermon?" Mm-hmm. Yeah. They take the sermon. So Malcolm's cadence, all right, they would listen to the best ministers, black ministers, and develop their ideology. It was with ministers training, you know, so, I mean, like in schools. So cadre development. It was constant cadre development. All right. So when you develop you know, you have a black manifesto, this a basic document for building a black united front. It used to be a statement in the Nation of Islam, I may be wrong, there's no big eyes, no little me's in the Nation of Islam. All right? So, you know, I mean, like, everybody was equal. So, you know, we glorified it as individuals, but that was a movement. So when all this breaks, the break came through black women in the South. Mrs. Rosa Parks said if she had looked up on that bus, she wouldn't have got on that bus, because that driver put her off the bus for doing the same thing in 1941. All right? And she wasn't by herself, but they needed the image. She wasn't by herself, she was part of an organization, a women's organization, the Women's Political Council. That was all part of the Montgomery NAACP. When they put together the Montgomery Improvement Association, that was half of the Garveyites from the UNIA in Alabama. There with the NAACP. That was a united front. See? So, I mean, we should understand that, you know, the basis of all that is, you know, was united front building. So when we look at Malcolm, he knew how to build a collective. The problem was we are in, I want to give just a word, a cultural matrix. And the problem is that we'll go for like that, you know what I mean, like media. Always either turned us off or turned us on. All right. So, you know what I mean, like, it is due to contradictions. All right. So, I mean, they don't control, you know, this stuff right now. All right. So you can use it. You know, they'll turn it into its opposite. And that's what they're going, you know, they're in the process of doing. And in the process of bringing in not principled issues, but I mean, you know, secondary issues to divide us and confuse us, and then comes the hammer. But we should see, we are in fascism. Anytime they poison water, it's genocide. You don't need to clap. Look, war is declared on us.
Yeah.
All right? They coming now. You know, so it's important that we unite and begin to have collective discussions around the principles of the manifesto and whatever Saladin was to say before the end of the program, and you know, break up, you know, on the basis of your interests. Some people have unions. You know, you need to, you know, how are we going to manifest this among the unionists, you know, or among, you know, how are we going to organize the unorganized in Boston, right? Then you can spread whatever. If your teachers strike, you know, I mean, like, you know, what's the issues of public education? And, you know, your students, I know you get the help, right? You know what I mean? Like, how are we going to, you know, shut this woman hurt? Sit down. Right? And, you know, so, I mean, like, you know, I mean, it's serious, you know. So, you know, look, the reason why the movement can't do a damn thing, because everybody's in debt. All right? Everybody's in debt. All right? Because if you're a parent, you send your, you know, your child to school, and you paying, you know, student debt, plus your child gets out and they got to pay half of the debt for the rest of their life, right? Hey, you can come around, everybody can unite to end the student debt. If, you know, Cuba can do it, why the hell can't we do it? All right? And they developing relations with Cuba. Right. You should have single payer health care. Right? Single payer health care. Right? If Cuba can do it, they're all over the world. Right? Why can't we do it? But it takes training and unity building in moving the whole community. And that's just part of the issue. So I would say, unite with everything that has been said, And this is what Malcolm was trained by the movement. Many people trained. And so he, you'd be walking with him down the street, little old ladies say, Mr. X, can I speak to you? He'd stop. Listen, hustlers would come up to him, school teachers, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I asked him one question. I said, what do you think about Marxism and Leninism? Malcolm studied everything. So it wasn't nothing, you know. He said, if you want somebody to drink something out of a bottle, he said, if you tell them, hey, this is poison, this is skull, crossbones on the bottle, they ain't gonna drink. He said, cherry soda. Want some cherry soda?
Thank you to all of our panelists. Give everyone a round of Just a quick announcement before we open the floor for questions. Tony Vandermeer and I are planning a trip to Cuba. We would be leaving June 12th and coming back the 21st. If anyone here is interested in coming, please see me or Professor Vandermeer after the end of the panel. We can discuss this further. Thank you. So does anyone in the audience have any questions for any of our panelists? Oh, and also, if anyone has any gender-specific pronouns, if you can speak to them before you ask your question, so we can all make sure that we're respecting each and every one of our personal identities. Okay?
I guess I'll stand up. Hi, I'm Jordana. I go by Queen.
Welcome.
So thank you so much. This was very refreshing. And it was very refreshing. So I'll open up with a comment and then it goes into a question. So I think a lot of you guys talked about and touched upon tools that we need in order to a lot of the things, and also rebuild with like concrete as opposed to tin, right? Like some structure that can withstand, because we're up against crap every day. So for me, I'm kind of coming into my own right now and my identity, and just kind of like, I act out of courage, not fear. So sometimes it's been a little difficult, but at the end of the day, I stand by my karma, and my Ashe has definitely been by my side. So I'm continuing that. But yesterday was Haitian Flag Day. IT stand up. I'm Dominican, but IT stand up. So that's what it is. It's not DR, it's not Haiti, it's IT. So Haitian Flag Day, that flag is beautiful. And this country and their history, and the Tainos and the Arawaks and the Caribs, we are the Aboriginals, and we're a tribe of the Aboriginals. And once you look at your identity, you're able to realize Sankofa. You go back and you fetch it in order to move forward with dignity and pride and grace. So one thing I definitely yesterday, and then in commemoration today of Malcolm X, it was a perfect backdrop, because what were the tools that the first free slave, which was not slave, which the first free slave nation used? Stand up. Anybody? Shout it out. No. Huh? Thank you. Voodoo. Spirituality. We need to arm ourselves with the tools, with the proper tools that have been working for ages, that have been hidden in Christianity. Islam is not, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm coming from a different island. Islam is you being yourself, you being law and master. You using your arm, leg, arm and head in order to be God and uplift fallen humanity. And that is a very important, that's a very important responsibility, but we have the tools so you can act out of courage and not fear. And I love that lemonade. That's like my therapy right now. Music and dance is my therapy. Although by trade, I'm a nurse and I just graduated a week ago. I'm still dealing with crap though, but whatever. What? So the thing is that spirituality, I want to know, what do you guys think about spirituality and the role that it plays, or that it needs to play in having us like finally get up and do what we got to do? Because there's a lot of pain, but there's a lot of healing to take place. There's a lot of all this stuff. So I just wanted to know, kind of, I think we have like a breadth of practices or beliefs. So I just wanted to know the role of spirituality and everything we talked about today.
Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate your question. Just hold on a second. We're going to take a few questions and then return to the panelists to answer them, just so we can have time to fit in everyone's questions and remarks. So
Keep your questions
and keep them brief,
comments
please.
Short.
Yes, I know. I wish we had more time for this portion. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. But we want to hear as many questions as we can. So if you can quickly let us know your questions so that we can return to the guest speaker to kind of answer.
I'll state the question before. I'll state the questions before, so when we go into the comments. Understand. All right, so how can we be critical of each other in our tactics and strategies towards liberation? In the same way, without Malcolm X, he was very critical of other people's tactics and strategies. He was killed for his methods of voicing his opinion about people. And the same kind of people made in this room, and something might be mentioned, and someone might think, oh, these black people are crazy. Why would I do that? You know what I mean? I'm going to get killed trying to do that way. Agree that way. You know, during development, progressed and developed different ideologies, which spoke about being deified to the level that people feel his legacy. And I think in the Black liberation movement, we can establish a front that's like, you can come in with any amount of knowledge and grow here. You don't have to be scared and feel like you're less known. The so-called woke people, all the time they point the finger and say, oh, you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't close your mouth. And that silences people who potentially could be learning, and that doesn't help the process. Another thing is that a war on media, since the conception of imperialism, which is tied to capitalism and then entwined with racism, there's been a war on information. And then the same people who perpetuate these devices that enable them to survive, because the people who were doing the lynching were poor working class whites, but the people who labeled you a nigga and this and that and said you were not worthy of life after slavery and equal rights were the ones controlling information. And we have to understand to identify the masters. In a sense, because a lot of people, they don't know why they may think like that. Even when you see a homeless person on the street, you might not identify them as your brother and not. Even when you speak about nationality, even if they're Dominican, Haitian, no matter what, you identify as black at the end of the day and get to that point. It's more than just sharing the post. It's putting that into a practical method that it's like the kids can use, because not everyone has access to anything. So if you're talking to somebody on the block, how are you going to tell them, about Malcolm X, how's relevant to them? How is it relevant to anything?
So we're going to take 2 more people to share their questions. It's going to be brief, so we can return to the panel and be able to answer them.
The problem is that this is going to close pretty soon.
Right, that's why.
Unfortunately, sorry, but so.
My question, I promise, will be brief. So I think that we talk about media, we hear the N-word a lot, the word nigga, and we've heard that it's related to the word nigga, the Tanukia word. And so how do we think that word nigga either harms or helps our movement or culture? Because I think that language is important to how we are collective.
I heard today people talking about Malcolm when he was younger and the struggles that he went through. And I just wanted to point out, like, if you look at his whole life and positive mental health, like, he made some real changes in his life to become a better person in terms of, like, like doing more cultural activities, political activities, spiritual activities that were positive. I just wanted to know, like, what role does mental health play in this whole like spectrum, like in terms of like sovereignty, liberation, struggle for freedom, peace, justice, equality for all, and like mental health as like not like the system of like pharmaceutical drugs, and like I'm talking about mental health in terms of like having like reform schools and like new cultural centers and new activities for people to do where they can take their mind off of being in prison and like focus on the things that matter.
So my question is very simple, it's very basic. At what point do we call a spade a spade? And I say that in the fight for white supremacy, right? We use words like oppression, we use words like genocide, we use words like internationalism, racism, capitalism, fascism, Mussolini, Hitler. None of those men would talk about what they do. Every time I turn around, young black male murdered by police, I have never heard young white male murdered by black police officers. So what I'm saying is, when we call a spade a spade, I want to keep talking about fighting. Use the word fighting, I think we just talk about fighting. I don't know about Charles Manson fighting. That's an argument. And it's a fight that's physical. And when does a physical fight stop someone from saying no? That's my question.
So here's our dilemma. Our dilemma is that we have to go. And I'm really sorry because this is such an important discussion. And this is such an important event. But it also tells us that, you know, we need to be able to have more public spaces, you know, open longer. And that's something we should be struggling for, right, to deal with it. So there's one thing, and I want Saladin, and either your questions are good questions and even your comments, but we aren't going to be able to hit them the way you want us to hit them. So Saladin, if you want to raise the question of the manifesto real quickly, and calling for, you know, a study group that we could probably talk about this more, and those who are interested, you know, we get your name and number, you know, you'll be contacted so we can look at this developing manifesto to call for a national Black Liberation Assembly around the manifesto, right? So, and before he do it, I just want to say this has been very good. I want to thank our sister. I want to thank all of our panelists. I want to thank the library. I want to thank Paul for live streaming it. I want to thank Brother Cisco for filming it. We'll try to put it online, you know, when that's done. There's going to be we're going to do an interview with DNN tomorrow with the three brothers. And Vanessa and myself are going to moderate that, so that'll be online. So and I want to also thank you for coming. So Brother Saladin, you want to close this out around the question you say?
Well,
before you go, you didn't announce the thing tomorrow of that day.
Oh, yeah, so the 29th annual Malcom X Memorial and Awards Breakfast is on Saturday, May 21st at 8 a.m. And also to add one more thing, if you haven't signed in, please make sure you put your information down, because the point of this is to start to build, you know, a working class base, starting to build a base of community here in Boston. And so we want to be able to reach out to you again to coordinate, you know. And it's beautiful to see all these Black and brown faces in this town. Thank you so much for coming.
There's been a call. There's been a call for unity to rebuild the National Black Liberation Movement. And it's been the call to bring the various battlefronts together and the most active elements in those battlefronts together to begin to develop and to refine a draft manifesto for Black liberation, and to begin to work together to organize the National Assembly that would adopt a manifesto based on an 80-20 principle. But we're not going to agree on everything. But if we can develop a strategic program that unites us to begin to fight together in this period. And what we're calling for is the formation of draft manifesto study groups to begin to meet together, to begin to refine how you see it, and also to organize a people's assembly in Boston in preparation for a national assembly. And so anybody who's interested in being a part of a draft manifesto study group to begin to help to develop and refine, please identify yourself, and we'd like to get your contact information so we can do that. Is there any interest?
Yeah. If you write manifesto next to your name when you sign in, then we'll know to shoot you an email in regards. The sign-in sheets are on both tables. There are a bunch of sign-in sheets.
Will you post this in the Facebook group as well?
Yes, I can post this.
And the sign-in sheet for the study group.
Yes.
Right. She got it.
Oh, great.
Thank you. If people can help us put the chairs up, we appreciate it.
Thank you. This concludes our program. Thank you so much.